Maybe you've noticed that you do seemingly strange things with your body, such as turning a foot out or turning a foot in, maybe leaning one way or hiking a hip. And today I will explain the mechanism behind all of that with a very simple analogy. People often talk about compensations as a bad thing that causes them problems. But what I really want to emphasize here is that there is nothing bad about compensations. In fact, it's quite the opposite, as you're hopefully going to learn. Which is why I will refer to them as strategies here. When we look at human movement and our body, we can imagine that we have a number of empty glasses. When we carry out a movement, that movement is represented as water in a jug or a big bottle. If I want to go for a walk or squat or reach for something on a shelf, I am using the water in my bottle. What I mean by that is that I am distributing my movement task, my water, into my glasses. The glasses here represent joints of our body. If, for example, I want to go for a walk, every single one of my joints, from my big toe to my neck and even into my fingers, will be involved. In an ideal world, I would distribute my water evenly into all of my glasses, or I would have the ability to do so. If I have the ability to evenly distribute my water, my walking, into my glasses, then each glass, each joint will have something to do as it receives load that gives my muscles something to do. Not so much, however, that there is overload, which is precisely what happens when I no longer have access to one or multiple of my glasses. When that is the case, I still carry out my movement, I still go for my walk, I still distribute my water, but I now have less options to do so. I now have to put more into the remaining glasses. This is a strategy that I have to use. Otherwise, I would simply not move at all. Now, if you think about an injury, for example, that's actually a pretty good thing. If you break your toe while you're out for a walk, you will still make it home thanks to your body's ability to do this. If you want to feel some of this, you can try the following. If you stand and depress your chest, this is going to reduce shoulder range of motion, which you can feel by taking your arm out to the side, which might feel hard going, and your head might possibly help you. Whereas if you open your chest again and extend your spine, the shoulder can suddenly start to move and your head no longer has to help. If you tuck your pelvis under and you bring your weight forwards into your foot, you're going to notice that it is very difficult to keep your heel down, which then means you're likely to feel it in your Achilles and probably your knee. Whereas if you let your hips go freely and you bring your weight into it again, you can feel how the movement is more distributed. If you retract your jaw and then you also try to retract your head, you're going to feel that this is a very blocked movement. Whereas if you protract your jaw and you then retract your head, you can feel how you get much more movement in your spine. So hopefully you can already begin to appreciate that this is actually a clever mechanism that allows us to get on with our life and the movements that we do in our life. We all do it. We all do it every single day. And without this ability, it is questionable whether we as a species would be here today. But it is true that it can lead to strategies that can appear and feel excessive and sometimes contribute to someone's pain. And we can really nicely follow a map in order to track and understand these strategies in order to find a better solution for it than just stabilizing something. When a foot turns out, for example, we shouldn't try to turn it straight. We have to understand that this foot is trying to do something because something else is not doing it. If we were to consciously turn it straight, what would we be doing? We'd take another glass away, and our body would simply find another strategy as a result of that. But we would have not addressed why it happened in the first place. We should instead try to ask ourselves what it means in the context of this glass analogy. We should ask, what is full and what is empty? When there's a bunion on a foot, it is the same thing. If there's excessive movement here, where else is it not happening? If every time I reach for something, or I want to lift something over my head and my back arches and aches, we shouldn't try to stabilize the back. We should ask, why is there so much of the movement there and where else is it not? The joint interactions between each other are actually very, very clear. For the spine, for example, if I don't have the ability to actually move my shoulder joint, but I still want to get something over my head, then I can simply arch my lower back in order to create the shape, the angles in my body that I need in order to complete that task. And likewise, if I lack rotation in my hips below my spine, then I have to do something in order to make up for that, such as going into a big anterior tilt, which again puts more extension into my lower back, which might not be comfortable for someone. You might ask yourself, why is that the case? Well, if I arch my lower back and I push my pelvis into an anterior tilt, what I'm actually doing is I'm changing the orientation of my hip socket as it starts to face forwards and in with my anterior tilt, which is how I can then make up for a lack of true internal rotation of my femur. So as a starting point, it is wise to look at the joints above and below the ones where we have our problems. For the lower back, for example, start asking yourself, how well do your hips move? Is it possible that your lower back is overflowing and your hips don't get any of that water? Is it possible that the spine above the lower back cannot move and that's why you have to dump all of your water into the lower back? If you notice your knee caves in a lot when you do certain things, could it be that your foot and ankle below and or the hips above don't contribute to whatever you're doing, so that your body has to find that movement in the knee? So I hope you can see what the solution is. We have to find out where our glasses stay empty, and we have to rediscover and restore their potential to help your body. By increasing their ability to take on movement, you are automatically taking it away from the ones that are taking on too much. Ultimately, what we're talking about here are options. How many options do I have available? Which ones do I have available? And when I find myself in different situations, I want to have the ability to adapt to that situation. I want my body to have the capacity to freely distribute that water into whatever glass and whatever amount is necessary in that moment. But I want to restore the freedom for my body to have as many options to choose from as possible. Our body craves efficiency. It wants things to be easy, as it always tries to simply conserve energy, which means it will choose those options once they're accessible and safe. That part that we notice, the part that is asking for our attention, is probably asking for help. We should listen to it. It is not the problem, it is actually the strategy to overcome the real problem. Compensation is not the problem, it's the solution.